Greetings. I'd like to start my presentation. Before that, let me ask you a question. What is your definition of leadership? Everyone has a different understanding of the word, but there's a catch. There's a thin line that connects every definition, and that's what we're going to find out today. Generation Z preference on leadership between Indonesia and Japan. Now, what's with this generation? Generation Z, born between 1995 to 2010, they're the youngest people in the workforce. In fact, most of them are still students now, which is why in the near future, we'll be facing a snowball of Generation Z reaching the labor market. Thus, shows a need for us to understand them before that. And what's with these two countries, Indonesia and Japan? I'll be showing the table comparison between the two countries later on, but now I'd like to talk about a similar problem they have in underemployment. The utilization of the workforce in these two countries are in question. Specifically, Indonesia being more consumptive than productive, Japan having a lot of irregular positions, meaning part time jobs. Imagine if we utilized this generation, it would create a massive impact, especially considering 32% of the world's population is Generation Z. 16 million being from Japan and 67 million from Indonesia. All right. This is how we did our research with the research question and objective as follow. Our scope and limitation are as follow. Please keep in mind that we do not look into factors that affect leadership preference. Moving on, this is our research design. And since we're talking about the house, this was how our research questions were answered. Now, we used a qualitative approach, interviewing 16 informants with a semi-structured interview, triangulation to validate their data, and content analysis to answer our research question. Now, why is this important? Leadership is the art of influencing and encouraging people to one direction, one destination. And above all, they're the solution to problems, which is why they're really important in the society. Preference being a part of expectation, failing this can cause low retention. However, meeting this preference can boost motivation, commitment, persistence, productivity, loyalty, effective leadership above all. Understanding this preference can make leader present themselves more effectively, better, and knows how to communicate with this group of people better. A lot of benefits to understand this. But Generation Z, Andrea's team had it described beautifully. Despite being the youngest and closest in age, Generation Z and Y are the least compatible. This shows how different Generation Z is compared with the other generations. Here are a few description of their characteristics. They lead in the light, they're purposeful, they're exceptional verbal communicators, they live in the present, they need constant feedback, they're very flexible, maintain personal life as motivation, they comply to teamwork if forced because they're very individualistic and they're happy even though they don't have much commitment. At the same time, they question self realization, yet very intuitive at IT, and so on. Now, moving on to what I mentioned earlier, the comparison between Indonesia and Japan, these two countries are actually uniquely similar, but at the same time, they're different. Now, they're similar, they're high context communication, they both value harmony, and then they are collective countries. However, they're different when we talk about their values. Here in Indonesia, believe in family, mutual aid, culture, religion, democracy, while Japan believe in justice, courage, virtue, politeness, honesty, and so on. And in terms of organizational culture, they're quite different too because one is short-term oriented and the other one is very insecure of the future. And one is feminine culture, the other one is masculine culture. but then they both have large power distance, which shows how similar they are, very uniquely similar. Now, this is our conceptual framework. We made 20 a list of 23 leadership traits that will be used as a pillar for us to conduct the interviews. And the left side shows primary traits, showing the leadership traits that are proven effective already, while the secondary traits are traits that are not proven effective yet, however, are critical to the culture of Indonesia and Japan. Even though they're not proven as effective leadership yet, following this can still boost the motivation, productivity, as I mentioned earlier, because you meet the preference of the people. Uh, these were taken from different literature reviews, from different backgrounds, such as good leadership traits, leadership style traits, personality traits that are related to leadership traits, and traits by Generation Z leaders. Thus, this was the compiled version. There were a lot of traits, but they were compiled into bigger words that encompasses the meaning under them, which we call components, and that that is how we make the list of 23 traits. Yeah. These were the interview questions, as can be seen on the PowerPoint. Let's move on to the interesting part. Now, this is our demography of the interviewees, and as can be seen, both respondents from both countries suffice Generation Z. And then types of employment, most of them are full timers, but Japan has more irregular positions as they're more common to be found. And for data validity, we made sure that 100% every respondents must have different background, which in here specifically we're talking about their industries, and they're all different countries respective wise. In terms of months of experience, Indonesia averaging 17 months and in Japan averaging 31 months. This is possible because Japanese work part time a lot more. And this was the conclusion of leadership traits preference that both countries um, have. As can be seen, the towers that are taller are those that are more preferred, and those that are shorter are less preferred. And we also found out that different backgrounds actually affect their leadership preference. Speaking of Indonesia and Japan, they're two different countries. Even though they're uniquely similar, there are still differences in their preference, which shows there are factors that affect leadership preference through background differences. And as a conclusion, we recommend an Indonesian leader to possess traits such as responsible, effective communication, knowledgeable, and united, while Japanese leaders should possess traits such as responsible, effective communication, future oriented, and extroversion. Please keep in mind the components of these traits matter to be possessed as well, and these can be taken for supervisors, managers, C levels, board directors, so on. And these can be possessed by tracked self improvement through journaling or using KPI to make sure that all of these traits suffice, or by the human capital management team to create directed training programs to make these traits into behaviors for the leaders of the company. Uh, Future research, we'd like to recommend further researches to compare extreme background differences to envision what factors actually matter most in developing leadership preference. Now, imagine how powerful a world would be if leaders and followers could work together at their utmost synergy. That's a vision that can come true. All we need now is to understand each other. This is my first step in making that dream come true. Now it's your turn. Thank you.